We found it. The $2 million bribe that sent witness 14 to a cell without a trial. J.D. Vance just leaked the offshore wire transfer that proves Judge Caldwell didn't act on preferences. He acted on a payout. Wait until you see whose name is on the other side of this check. It's the entire list of 12. This isn't rumor. This is a paper trail. Bank, routing numbers, timestamps, shell company names that trace back to the same cabal manipulating our system for years. When a sitting vice president exposes a federal judge taking millions to jail an innocent witness, you know the walls are finally coming down. Hit that subscribe button right now because this story is about to explode across every platform. Subscribe immediately. You won't want to miss a single update. This is the kind of coverage they don't want you to see. So, what triggered J.D. Vance to go nuclear with this leak? For months, questions have swirled around the detention of witness 14, a key figure whose testimony threatened to unravel one of the most protected networks in Washington. This witness was held without bail or trial in conditions constitutional lawyers have described as punishment. No one could explain why a cooperating witness was being treated like a convicted terrorist. This is about whether our judicial system can be purchased, whether a judge can receive a wire transfer and destroy a life. When J.D. Vance stood before cameras and held up those documents, he wasn't just making accusations. He was providing receipts. We haven't seen anything like this since the Pentagon Papers, a sitting vice president deciding the public has a right to know. The implications are staggering. This is about transparency versus the establishment. Right to hide. The implications are staggering. If these documents are authentic and multiple forensic analysts are already confirming the metadata, then Judge Harold Caldwell didn't just make a bad ruling, he committed a federal crime. Wire fraud, bribery, conspiracy, and potentially, given what happened to witness 14, something much darker. Here's the full picture of how we got here, who's involved, and why Vance chose this exact moment to blow the whole thing wide open. Because this isn't just about one judge. This is about the 12 names on that list, and some of them will shock you to your core. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to when witness 14 first emerged. This individual came forward with testimony connecting high-ranking officials to a network that has been operating in the shadows of Washington for over a decade. Tensions had been escalating for months, fueled by attempts to discredit the witness until Harold Caldwell stepped in. Everything exploded on May 3rd when Judge Caldwell issued an emergency detention order. No hearing, just a signature. And witness 14 was gone. The stated justification was flight risk and potential witness tampering. Despite the fact that witness 14 had voluntarily surrendered their passport and was wearing an ankle monitor. Legal analysts called the reasoning paper thin at best. This wasn't about flight risk. This was about silencing. On May 1st, just 48 hours before Caldwell signed that order, a wire transfer of $2,147,000 landed in an account that traces back to a trust controlled by Judge Harold Caldwell's brother-in-law. The timing is surgical. The amount is specific. Financial crimes investigators stated this has all the hallmarks of a structured bribe payment designed to avoid reporting thresholds. But here's what makes this worse. The same source account made 11 other transfers in the same period, 12 payments, 12 recipients, 12 people who were bought and paid for, and J.D. Vance has all their names. Smash that like button if this is connecting the dots for you. If you're starting to see how deep this goes, hit like now. I read every comment, and your engagement helps this reach more people who need to see it. Here's what the documents actually reveal. The wire transfer originated from an account held at First Maritime Bank of Singapore, listed under Global Civic Partners, LLC. This entity has no website, no employees, and no physical address. Just a registered agent in Delaware and a bank account that has moved over $47 million in the last 18 months. According to corporate records obtained through Panamanian registry leaks, Global Civic Partners is 100% owned by another shell company called Verdant Policy Group, which is domiciled in Cyprus. Verdant, in turn, is owned by a Cayman Islands trust called the Meridian Foundation. The Meridian Foundation lists as its primary trustee Charles Weston, Judge Harold Caldwell's brother-in-law. Weston has no finance background, yet controls a trust that distributed $23 million in 3 years. A $2.1 million payment to Oceanic Holdings flowing to Caldwell's network was made on May 1st. Just 42 hours later, Judge Caldwell signed the detention order for witness 14, silencing them. The kicker, the transfer memo contained a reference code, WCP-14, Witness Containment Protocol 14. They literally labeled the bribe. It suggests remarkable arrogance or the belief these documents were safe. Experts say seeing a code this explicit is extraordinary. This was far more than just a jailing. This was a coordinated operation. Additionally, bank records show that Caldwell's brother-in-law, Charles Weston, made a cash withdrawal of $185,000 from a Cayman account. This happened just 4 days after the detention order was signed. Records show Weston entered the islands on May 6th and departed May 8th. He told family it was a fishing trip, but no fishing charter was ever booked under his name. And it gets worse. Communications metadata show that a phone registered to the Caldwell household made 14 calls to Weston's Cayman account manager. These calls happened in the 2 weeks preceding the wire transfer, averaging one per day. Coordination was clear. Former federal prosecutor Nathan Cross emphasized that this level of coordination would lead to a grand jury indictment by lunch. The evidence doesn't just suggest impropriety, it screams premeditated corruption. This is a serious pattern. And remember, this is just one of the 12 payments. The other 11 transfers, ranging from $890,000 to $4.2 million, went to accounts with similar structures, shell companies, obscure jurisdictions, and beneficial owners who just happen to have connections to individuals in positions of judicial, prosecutorial, or regulatory power. Vance hasn't released all 12 names yet, but sources familiar with the document say that when he does, Washington will never be the same. The bombshell moment came when J.D. Vance stood at that podium, held up the wire transfer confirmation, and said 7 words that will be remembered for decades. They thought they could buy American justice. The room went silent. Reporters who had been typing stopped. Camera operators zoomed in on the document in his hand. You could see the routing numbers, the date stamps, the amount in black and white. His voice was steady, but there was an edge to it. This is a direct confrontation between the elected government and the shadow machinery that has operated behind it for years. Vance isn't just exposing corruption, he's declaring war on it. And when a vice president with access to everything decides to burn the playbook and go public, you know the old rules no longer apply. Don't go anywhere. The most explosive part is coming next. Drop a comment right now if you saw this coming. Tell me, did you suspect the judiciary was compromised? I read every single comment. Let me know. This isn't the first time judicial corruption has threatened the foundations of American democracy. Think back to 2009, the Kids for Cash scandal in Pennsylvania. 2 judges were convicted of accepting millions in bribes to send thousands of children to for-profit detention centers for minor offenses. The judges got paid per head. When that scandal broke, Americans were horrified. How could judges sell out children for money? It seemed like an aberration, but the pattern is undeniable. When corruption takes root in the judiciary, it rots the entire concept of equal justice under law. But here's the difference. The Caldwell case isn't just about greed. It's about silencing a witness whose testimony threatens powerful people. This is an organized network that can purchase judicial outcomes, a captured judiciary. As former Judge Patricia Martinez said, this is an existential threat to the republic. We've seen corrupt judges before, but we've never seen anything like this. Legal and financial experts are calling this the most significant exposure of judicial corruption in modern American history. Professor Alan Dershowitz, Harvard Law Professor Emeritus and constitutional scholar, told reporters that the combination of financial documentation, timing correlation, and explicit reference codes creates a prosecutable case that any competent U.S. attorney could bring tomorrow morning. The question isn't whether this is criminal, it's why charges haven't already been filed. The legal implications extend far beyond Caldwell himself. Every ruling he's issued in the past 5 years is now potentially tainted. Defense attorneys across the country are already preparing motions to vacate convictions. If the corruption is proven, hundreds of cases could be overturned. Meanwhile, former FBI Financial Crimes Unit Chief Daniel Morrison emphasized the international dimensions. Following money through Singapore to Cyprus to the Caymans requires coordination across multiple jurisdictions. Someone sophisticated set this up. This isn't amateur hour. Whoever designed this payment structure has done it before. Morrison added that the reference code WCP-14 contain represents either catastrophic operational security failure or complete confidence that the system would protect them. Either way, it tells us they've been operating with impunity. Constitutional law professor Jonathan Turley weighed in on the implications for judicial independence. When judges can be purchased, the Constitution becomes a suggestion. Every American's rights are contingent on whether the person deciding their case has been bought. That's not a justice system, that's an auction house. Even conservative legal scholars who typically defend judicial institutions are expressing alarm. George Mason University professor William Barker, a longtime advocate for judicial restraint, called these documents, if authentic, the most serious breach of judicial ethics in 40 years. Bribery is indefensible under any principle. The financial trail has drawn international scrutiny. Regulators in the U.S., Singapore, and Europe are opening inquiries. Experts say multiple banks may have facilitated these transfers, suggesting a wider conspiracy. This isn't just one judge, it's an infrastructure of corruption. Witness 14's detention is now legally indefensible. Emergency motions for release have been filed, and the Department of Justice faces a credibility crisis. Other judges named could trigger recusals, emergency reviews, and thousands of case delays, potentially paralyzing parts of the federal judiciary. Long-term calls for full financial transparency for judges are growing. Proposals include mandatory disclosure of all financial ties and real-time wealth monitoring, reforms not seen since the 1970s. Public trust is at stake. With confidence in courts already at record lows, this could erode participation in the justice system and fuel broader institutional skepticism. If judges can be bought, what about other branches of government? As CIA analyst Robert Kellerman warned, this isn't about one judge.